At 2:13 a.m., the rain in Brookhaven wasn't falling so much as it was scraping the windows of the 911 dispatch center. Thin, nervous lines of water that looked like something trying to get in. The night shift was always quieter, but not calm. Quiet is where your brain starts inventing patterns, and where every little sound feels like a warning. Ethan Reed knew that. He'd been a dispatcher for 4 years, long enough to recognize the difference between a prank call and a person who's trying not to die. The screen in front of him was a grid of calls, units, and location pings. All of it backed by systems so old you could practically hear them breathing. He took a sip of burnt coffee, adjusted his headset, and watched the clock tick from 2:12 to 2:13. The line lit up. No caller ID. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the silence that came with it. Ethan clicked in. 911, what's your emergency? There was a sound, faint, like fabric brushing a microphone. Then a woman's voice, so quiet it barely existed, like it was being spoken from inside a closet. Please, don't talk loud. Ethan sat up. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Okay, I can hear you. Are you in danger right now? The woman inhaled, shaky, controlled. He's still in my house. Ethan's stomach tightened. Ma'am, I need your address. A beat. Then a whisper that felt like it came with rules. You can't ask me that. Ethan blinked. I have to ask. I can send help. No, she breathed. And that one word carried a kind of terror that didn't belong to acting. If you say the address out loud, he'll know I'm on the phone. If you say it, he'll listen. Ethan's eyes darted to the room. 2 other dispatchers were on calls, their voices a low murmur. He lowered his own voice, leaning toward the mic. Okay, then don't say it out loud. But you can give me something. Cross streets, a landmark, anything. A tremor ran through her next words. He's in the hallway. I can hear his shoes on the wood. Ethan typed, female caller, whispering intruder inside home. He flagged it as active threat. Are you hiding? Yes. A tiny sound, like a swallow. Bathroom. The lock is... It's old. I'm holding it. Ethan's voice stayed steady because it had to. Listen to me. I'm going to help you. Are you alone? I was painting, she whispered. And Ethan caught the weirdness in that detail. Like her brain was grabbing onto normal things so she wouldn't collapse. My studio is in the back room. I heard the front door. I thought it was my neighbor. Her breath hitched. Then I heard him inside. He didn't call out. He didn't turn on lights. He just walked like he knew where he was going. Ethan's fingers moved fast. Do you see him? No, I can hear him. And I can smell him. Ethan frowned. Smell? Like cold air. Like metal. She paused. And when she spoke again, her voice dropped even lower. Please. There's one thing. Don't say the time. Ethan's eyes flicked to the clock. What? Don't say what time it is, she repeated, urgent. And it sounded like she was trying not to cry. If you say it, he'll stop moving. He'll listen. Ethan swallowed. Okay, I won't say it. Another soft sound in the call. Something distant, rhythmic. Ethan leaned closer. Is that music? The woman went still for a second, and when she answered, it was like she didn't want to confirm it. It's the wind chime. Ethan stared. Inside the house? In the hallway, she whispered. It only moves when someone passes it. Ethan's skin prickled. So, if it's moving? She didn't finish. Ethan didn't need her to. Ma'am, I'm dispatching officers right now. I need any location data your phone can give me. Are you calling from a cell? No, she said. Landline. Ethan's eyes snapped to the system. Landlines usually pulled an address automatically. He opened the location pane. It was blank. Not unavailable. Not error. Blank. Like the field had never been made. Ethan's mouth went dry. That's not possible, he murmured, forgetting for half a second that he was on an open line. The woman flinched in her voice. He moved, she whispered. He heard you. Ethan forced his tone down to a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Stay with me. Don't hang up. I'm not hanging up, she breathed. He's coming closer. I can tell because the house sounds different when he's near. Ethan's heart thudded, and he hated that he understood what she meant. Old houses creak, pipes click, air changes. What's your name? He asked softly. Sophie, she whispered. Sophie Hart. Ethan typed it. Sophie, listen carefully. If you can't give an address, give me a room, a clue. What do you see? A long pause, and Ethan could almost feel her eyes moving in the dark. The wallpaper is peeling, she said. There's a little crack in the tiles shaped like a lightning bolt. She swallowed. And there's a photo on the counter, my mom. She's smiling, and I hate it because it looks like she's not real. Ethan tried to keep the emotion out of his voice. Okay. Sophie, can you open a window? No, she whispered instantly. If I move the latch, he'll hear. The rhythmic sound returned, soft chime, then stopped. Sophie's breath froze. He's right outside, she whispered. Ethan's hands clenched. He clicked a button to ping the line anyway. The system responded with a message he'd never seen in his life. Route unresolved. Ethan stared at it, then at the blank address field. He felt a chill crawl up his spine because it wasn't just failing, it was refusing. Sophie, Ethan said, voice almost soundless now. Do you have any way to text me your address? No, she breathed. My phone is on the wall by the kitchen. I'm on the cordless. If I leave the bathroom, he'll see me. Ethan's mind raced. Okay. Then listen. When the officers arrive, you stay hidden until you hear them announce themselves. Do you understand? They're not coming, Sophie whispered. And the way she said it was different. Not fear, certainty. Ethan's stomach dropped. Why would you say that? Another pause, and then Sophie said, very carefully, like each word cost her something. Because this call isn't supposed to exist. Ethan's throat tightened. Sophie, what do you mean? The line crackled. In the background, something shifted, wood creaking under weight. Sophie's whisper became a trembling breath. He's at the door, she said. He's touching the handle. Ethan's voice turned to pure steel, even at a whisper. Sophie, stay silent. Hold the lock. I'm with you. Then, right as Ethan prepared to break every rule and shout for the floor supervisor, Sophie said one last thing, barely audible. If you hear your own voice, don't trust it. Ethan frowned hard. What? A click. The wind chime moved once, sharply. Then the call didn't end with a hang-up tone. It ended with a clean, unnatural cut, like someone had reached into the line and snipped it. Ethan stared at his screen. The call log flashed for a moment, then vanished. No record number, no duration, no trace. Just the cursor blinking in an empty field like it was mocking him. Ethan's hands were shaking. He opened the audio buffer. There should have been a temporary recording. Something, anything. The file appeared, but the timestamp read 0000. He hit play. At first there was only static. Then, clear as day, a voice whispered into his headset. "Hang up, Ethan. Don't say the time." And it was his own voice. Ethan didn't realize he'd been holding his breath until his lungs started to burn. The audio buffer on his screen had a duration that read like a joke, 0 seconds. Yet what he'd heard still buzzed inside his skull. "Hang up, Ethan. Don't say the time." And the worst part was the voice. It wasn't similar. It wasn't close. It was his voice, down to the tiny rasp he got when he was tired. He clicked the play button again, hoping it would turn into static, hoping he'd imagined it. The waveform flickered, then flattened. Nothing. Ethan's fingers hovered over the keyboard as if his hands didn't trust the rest of him anymore. He opened the call history. Empty. He searched by time. Empty. He searched by line. Empty. It was like the woman, Sophie, had never existed. Like the last 3 minutes were something his brain had invented to fill the silence of a night shift. But the cold sweat on his palms was real. The rain on the windows was real. And the chill crawling up his spine was real. Ethan stood so fast, his chair rolled back and bumped the desk behind him. He crossed the dispatch floor in a few quick steps and looked toward the supervisor station. No supervisor. Of course. It was always the same on nights. 3 dispatchers, 1 tech on call who never answered, and a building full of locked doors. He grabbed the laminated incident procedure binder and flipped it open with shaking hands. Active intruder calls. Unverified location call. Landline address failure. Nothing covered a call that erased itself. Ethan went back to his desk and forced himself to think like he'd been trained. Anchor the facts. What do I know? A whisper call. A woman hiding in a bathroom, an intruder inside. A landline that should auto-locate but didn't. A warning not to say the time. A call log that vanished. A buffer that read 0000. And then that voice, his voice, telling him to hang up. He pulled up the phone system diagnostics, the ugly back-end screen that normally only mattered when lines were down. The call showed up there for half a second as an open session, then blinked out like the system itself was embarrassed. Ethan copied the session ID anyway, before it could disappear again. It was a string of numbers and letters that meant nothing to a normal person, but meant everything to a technician. He pasted it into a scratch file, then printed it on paper because paper didn't blink. The printer whirred, coughed out a sheet, and Ethan stared at the ink as if it might be the only thing he could trust. The session ID ended with 4 characters that looked like a routing tag. U39. Ethan's stomach tightened. That wasn't a normal tag. that looked like the kind of internal shorthand used for old hardware rotes. The stuff that stayed in a system long after everyone forgot why. He checked the time again and stopped himself before he said it out loud, even though he was alone at his desk. He'd never been superstitious. He'd worked storms, suicides, car wrecks, domestic calls that made him want to throw up. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in patterns. And every pattern in this call screamed the same thing. Someone, or something, was controlling the rules. Ethan picked up his desk phone and called the non-emergency line for patrol. The ringtone sounded too cheerful. Brookhaven Sheriff's Office, a tired voice answered. Ethan lowered his voice automatically. This is dispatch. I need units staged for a possible in-progress home invasion. Caller name Sophie Hart. Address? The deputy asked. Ethan paused. The address didn't exist in his system. Saying the word address made his skin crawl. We don't have it, Ethan admitted. Landline location failed. I'm trying to trace. If you don't have an address, we can't just drive around, the deputy said, irritation mixing with fatigue. Can you ping the line? I tried, Ethan said. It came back unresolved. The deputy exhaled. Then it's either a bad call or your system is down. My system isn't down, Ethan snapped, then forced himself to calm. Look, I know how it sounds, but I heard her. She was real. I need you to at least have a unit available. There was a beat. Then the deputy softened slightly. Okay, I'll tell a car to stand by, but you need to give me something. Ethan stared at the printed session ID at the U39 tag and made a decision that felt insane. Pull any contacts for Sophie Hart in the last 48 hours, he said. Missing persons, welfare checks, anything. Dispatch, that's not my job, the deputy said. But Ethan heard the shift in his tone. He'd caught it. The deputy was listening now. Please, Ethan said quietly. Just check. The line went silent for a moment. Then the deputy returned, voice suddenly different. Sophie Hart, he said, reading off a screen. There's a file. Not recent. It's older. Missing persons from 3 years ago, age 28, last known address redacted. Ethan's throat went dry. Redacted? Yeah, the deputy said. It's flagged restricted. That's weird. Ethan's eyes flicked to the U39 tag again. The universe felt like it had tightened. Who worked that case? Ethan asked. Detective Avery, the deputy replied. Ethan's heart dropped and then steadied, because for the first time all night, he had something that wasn't disappearing. A name, a thread. He hung up and immediately called the Detective Bureau line, knowing full well nobody should be answering at 2 a.m. It rang 4 times. On the 5th ring, someone picked up. Avery, a voice said. Female, calm. Like she'd been expecting the call, Ethan sat up straight. Detective Avery, this is Ethan Reed, dispatch. I'm sorry to call this late, but I just had a 911 whisper call from a woman who said her name is Sophie Hart. Silence. Not dead silence. Listening silence. Say that again, Avery said. Ethan swallowed. Sophie Hart. She said there's an intruder in her house. But the call... Detective, the call erased itself from our system. No address, no log, no audio file. Only a routing tag. U39. There was a sound on Avery's end like a chair scraping. Where are you right now? Avery asked. At dispatch, Ethan said. Night shift. Don't say the time, Avery said immediately, and Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. How? He started. Just don't, Avery said, sharp now. Listen to me, Ethan. Did she whisper? Yes, Ethan said. And she warned me not to say the time. Avery exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her own breath for 3 years. You're not the first dispatcher to call me with that name, Avery said. But you are the first one who admitted the system erased it. Ethan's mouth went dry. Other dispatchers called you? 3, Avery said. Over the span of 2 years. Each one thought it was a prank. Each one said the same details. Bathroom, wind chime, intruder, moving like he knows the house. And every time, by the time I got to dispatch, there was no call record, no audio, no trace. Ethan gripped the edge of his desk. So what did you do? He asked. I did what detectives do, Avery said. I chased the parts that didn't move. Paper, receipts, hardware, the stuff nobody thinks to erase. Ethan looked at his printed session ID like it was suddenly the most important piece of paper in the building. What is U39? He asked. Avery didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was low. It's not a unit in the field, she said. It's a route, a dead route. Something that should have been decommissioned. A path inside the phone system that goes somewhere it shouldn't. Ethan's pulse hammered. Where does it go? That's what I'm going to find out tonight, Avery said. Because if Sophie Hart is on the line again, you're closer than I ever got. Ethan's eyes darted to his monitors, to the empty call log, to the audio panel that still showed 0000 like a blank stare. Detective, the audio. When I tried to play it, I heard a whisper. It told me to hang up. And the voice, it was my voice. Another pause. Then Avery said, very carefully, Ethan, I need you to listen to me like your life depends on it. Ethan swallowed. I'm listening. If you hear your own voice, Avery said, assume it's not you. Ethan felt ice spread through his chest. What does that mean? Avery's next words came out like a confession. It means whatever is behind this can mimic you. It can feed you your own sound back through the system. It can make it look like you did things you didn't do. It can rewrite a call so it ends because you hung up. Ethan stared at his hands, suddenly unsure if he could trust them. So what do I do? He asked. Avery's voice sharpened into command. You keep everything you can on paper. You keep screenshots if you can, but don't trust them. You do not say the time. And if the call comes back, you don't ask for the address. You ask for something that can't be erased. Ethan frowned. Like what? Ask her about the wind chime, Avery said. Ask what it sounds like. Ask what it's made of. If she answers the same as last time, she's real. If it changes, you're talking to the thing. Ethan's skin prickled. And if she's real? Avery said. Then we find her without the system. We find her the old way. Ethan nodded even though she couldn't see him. I have the session ID, he said. I printed it. It ends with U-39. Good, Avery said. Take a photo of the paper with your personal phone and email it to yourself from a private account, and then put the paper in your pocket. Don't leave it on the desk. Ethan did it fast. Photo, email, fold the page, slip it into his jacket. His hands shook like they didn't want to cooperate. "I'm coming to dispatch," Avery said. "But Ethan, one more thing." "What?" Ethan asked. Avery hesitated. "The last dispatcher who called me about Sophie Hart," she said slowly, "had a clean internal memo appear in his personnel file the next day. It said he ended a 911 call improperly. It had his badge number, his signature, his voice on a recording confirming it." Ethan's mouth went dry. "But he didn't," Ethan whispered. "No," Avery said. "He didn't. And he quit 2 weeks later because nobody believed him." Ethan stared at the empty call log again. And for the first time, he understood the real danger. It wasn't just an intruder in a house. It was a system that could make you look guilty with perfect paperwork. Ethan opened his mouth to respond. But at that exact moment, his call queue lit up again. No caller ID, no location. Just a silent line, glowing like a trap. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He didn't click answer right away. He looked at the rain on the window, at the clock he refused to name, at the paper in his pocket that proved this had happened, and he whispered to himself, without letting it become a time, "Okay." Then he clicked answer. The line was silent for 2 seconds. And then Sophie's voice returned, smaller than before, shaking with relief like she'd been holding her breath for an hour. "Ethan," she whispered. "I didn't hang up." Ethan's eyes widened. He felt Avery's warning wrap around him like a cold hand. If you hear your own voice, assume it's not you. Ethan leaned toward the mic and kept his voice barely above air. "Sophie," he whispered, "tell me about the wind chime." Sophie inhaled. And in the background of the call, behind her breathing, Ethan heard it. A soft, cheerful 2-note ding like a bell inside a locked hallway. Then a second sound, slower, closer. 3 taps. Tap, tap, tap. And a whisper that wasn't Sophie's slipped into the line like a smile. "Now tell me the time." Ethan didn't answer the question. He didn't say a word, because the moment that whisper slid into the line, "Now tell me the time," he understood something brutal. Whatever was on the other end didn't need information. It needed permission. It needed him to participate. Ethan leaned closer to the mic and forced his voice down to almost nothing. Not because Sophie asked him to, but because the building itself felt like it was listening. "Sophie," he whispered, "don't speak. If you can hear me, give me one sound. Tap the phone once." The line stayed quiet for a beat. Then Ethan heard it. One soft click, like plastic against skin, not speech, a signal. Relief hit him so hard he almost laughed, but he swallowed it. "Okay," he breathed. "You're real." The whisper didn't leave. It hovered in the static like a grin. Ethan kept his eyes on the audio meter. It rose and fell in tiny waves that weren't words, like the line was breathing. He remembered what Avery had said. Ask for something that can't be erased. He didn't fully understand it until that moment. A system can delete a file. It can rewrite a log. It can manufacture an ending. But it can't erase a physical detail that repeats the same way every time, unless it knows it. Ethan spoke carefully, like he was stepping on broken glass. "Sophie," he whispered, "tell me the wind chime. What is it made of?" There was a pause, and Ethan's throat tightened because he could feel the trap waiting. Then Sophie answered, barely a breath. "Glass," she whispered. "Blue glass. My mom bought it at a beach shop. It sounds happy. That's why I hate it." Ethan's pulse steadied. That detail was too specific to be guessed. Too human, too sad. He closed his eyes for a second, anchored. "Good," he whispered. "Sophie, listen. I'm not going to ask your address. I'm going to ask you something else. What do you see under the bathroom door?" Sophie inhaled, slow. "Light," she whispered. "A thin line. It keeps changing." Ethan's stomach clenched. "Is the line wide or narrow right now?" "Narrow," Sophie said. "Like he's close." Ethan forced himself to breathe. "Okay. Sophie, you need to stay exactly where you are. Don't move. Don't touch the handle. Just listen. I'm going to get you help without the system." The whisper returned, silky and patient. "The system is you," it breathed, and Ethan's skin turned to ice. He refused to react. He stared at his desk phone, at the printed page in his pocket, at the one thing he could still trust. Avery was coming. Ethan opened a second line and put it on mute, no spoken words. Then tapped out a quick message to Avery through the internal pager system, the old one most people forgot existed. He didn't type the time. He didn't type Sophie's name. He typed only what mattered. U39 active. Sophie online. Wind chime blue glass. Footprints at dispatch door. He hit send. For a moment, the pager system showed the message as queued. Then it vanished. Not failed. Not sent. Just gone. Ethan felt a laugh rise in his chest, sharp and wrong. It was like trying to talk in a dream. The whisper in the line softened, almost kind. "You can't send help," it said. "You can only choose." Ethan swallowed. He kept his voice low and steady. "Sophie," he whispered, "I need a landmark in your house that you can describe without saying words. Can you do something for me?" Sophie's breathing hitched. "What?" "Open the bathroom sink," Ethan whispered. "Just a little. Let it drip." Sophie hesitated, and Ethan felt the intruder's attention lean closer through the line. "Please," Ethan whispered. "It will help me hear the room." There was a tiny movement, then a soft squeak of a faucet, and then the quietest drip, drip, drip you've ever heard. Ethan closed his eyes and listened like it was a map. The drip echoed differently than a normal tiled bathroom. It had a hollow tail, like the sound had space behind the wall. Ethan didn't know how he knew it. He only knew it was wrong. "Sophie," he whispered, "is your bathroom on an outside wall?" "Yes," she breathed. "Window behind the shower." "Okay," Ethan whispered. "Keep it dripping. Now, do you hear the wind chime moving?" A long pause. Then Sophie whispered, terrified, "Yes." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Is it moving slowly or fast?" Sophie's voice cracked. "Slow, like someone is standing under it." Ethan felt the hairs rise on his arms. The whisper in the line became a murmur. "He can stand there forever," it said. "He's patient." Ethan tightened his grip on the desk edge. He knew if he panicked, the thing would win. So he did something dispatchers do when they're outmatched. Made the other person a job. "Sophie," he whispered. Listen to the drip. Count it in your head. Don't stop counting. It will keep you present. Sophie whispered, Okay. The drip continued. The audiometer trembled with her breath. Ethan watched the blank address field on his screen as if it might suddenly show mercy. It stayed empty. Then, without warning, his monitor flashed a small system prompt. Plain, sterile, like a command line, asking a single question. What time is it, Ethan? The cursor blinked beneath it. Ethan froze. His throat tightened. The whisper in the phone line went quiet, like everything was holding still to watch. Ethan's eyes flicked to the wall clock, then away. He refused to look. He refused to give it the satisfaction. He leaned toward the mic and whispered, No. The cursor blinked. The prompt stayed on screen. The question didn't go away. Then the phone line crackled, and for the first time Sophie's whisper turned into a sob. He's opening the door, she breathed. Ethan's heart slammed. He felt his whole body surge forward, like he could run through the wire and hold the lock for her. Sophie, he whispered. Hold it. Hold it. Don't move. Don't. And then his headset clicked, and his own voice slid into his ear again. Perfectly calm, perfectly him. You already hung up, it said. You already chose. Ethan's hands went cold. The screen prompt blinked again, patient. What time is it, Ethan? The drip in Sophie's sink continued, steady and helpless. The wind chime rang once, 2 cheerful notes, then stopped. And in the silence that followed, Ethan heard 3 taps on the line, not from Sophie. Tap, tap, tap. Like the thing was right there beside her, right there beside him, tapping on the glass between worlds. Ethan stared at the blinking cursor and realized the worst truth of the night. This wasn't a question about time. It was a test of control. If he typed anything, the system would record it as his decision. It would make the paperwork. It would make the proof. Ethan's fingers hovered above the keyboard. He didn't type a time. He typed a lie that wasn't a time at all. He typed, I'm not here. The cursor stopped blinking. The prompt vanished. The phone line went dead silent for 1 full second. No drip, no breath, no static. Like someone had muted reality. Then Sophie whispered, faint and stunned. It stopped. Ethan swallowed. What stopped? He whispered. The handle, Sophie said. He's not moving. Ethan's eyes were wide. He didn't understand, but he didn't question it. He used the 1 second of stillness. Sophie, he whispered, you're going to do exactly what I say. When I count to 3 in my head, you're going to step away from the door. Quietly. And you're going to move to the bathtub. Do you understand? Sophie whispered, Yes. Ethan didn't say the count out loud. He just watched the drip on the audio meter and felt his heartbeat as the only clock he could trust. 1, 2, 3. Sophie moved. Ethan heard fabric shift. He heard a breath catch. He heard the faintest creak of tile under a careful foot. Then the wind chime in the hallway rang again, louder this time. Not cheerful, angry. Like someone had swung a fist through it. The line filled with static, and the whisper returned, no longer amused. You can't hide from the record, it hissed. Ethan's screen flashed. The call log reappeared for a split second, just long enough for Ethan to see a single word beside it. Disconnected. And under that, In tiny letters he couldn't read. The system stamped a reason. Ethan's blood went cold because he knew what was coming next. A memo. A signature. A recording of his voice confirming it. He grabbed his phone and filmed the monitor with his camera, even if it was shaky, even if it wouldn't prove anything. He filmed the word disconnected. He filmed the blank address. He filmed the audio buffer that read 00:00. Then the screen went blank again. Gone. Ethan sat back, breathing hard through his nose, refusing to say the time, refusing to speak the wrong words. Across town, Detective Avery's car cut through the rain toward the industrial strip. Her hands steady on the wheel, her mind focused on the only thing that mattered, finding a route that wasn't supposed to exist. And back in Sophie's house, the bathroom door finally went still. Too still. Like the intruder had stepped away. Sophie whispered one last thing before the line dropped into static. "Ethan," she breathed. "If the system calls you, don't answer." Then the call ended with that same clean cut, like scissors through a wire. Ethan stared at the empty screen, at the wet footprints on the hallway camera that now reached his door. And he understood exactly what Sophie meant. The system wasn't just recording the night. It was trying to become the one who decides how it ends. Ethan didn't move from his chair for a long time after the line cut. The dispatch room felt different now, like the air had learned a new rule and was waiting to see if he'd break it. He kept his hands flat on the desk, forcing himself not to fidget, not to touch the keyboard unless he absolutely had to. Across the monitors, everything looked normal, in the way a lie looks normal. No open incident, no record, no call. Just the quiet glow of a system pretending it had never been afraid. But Ethan had proof in his pocket. A folded sheet of paper with a session ID and the route tag that should not exist. U39. He stared at the hallway camera feed again. The wet footprints were still there. They didn't smear or fade like real water should. They just sat on the tile outside the dispatch door as if the camera had stamped them into reality. Ethan watched, waiting for another print to appear. Waiting for the chime to ring, waiting for the deadbolt to suddenly mean nothing. Nothing happened. That was the worst part. Silence felt like a hand hovering above a switch. His desk phone lit again. No caller ID, no location. Just a pale line glowing like an invitation. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't even look at the clock. He simply pushed his chair back, stood, and took his personal phone from his pocket. He opened the camera and started recording the room itself. The empty call log screen, the hallway camera with the footprints, the locked door, the fluorescent lights. If the system wanted to rewrite him, he was going to make it work harder. His phone captured the hum, the rain against the glass, the faint crackle of the radio in standby. Then the overhead light flickered once, and Ethan felt that same crawling certainty. Something was testing for his attention. He kept recording anyway. On the radio, a soft burst of static sounded like someone pressing a mic and letting go. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't ask who it was. He waited. A minute later, the dispatch door window showed nothing but the empty corridor. Yet the wet footprints on the camera looked closer than they had a second ago. Not because they moved. Because the camera's framing shifted by a few pixels, like someone nudged the feed sideways. Ethan's mouth went dry. The system wasn't trying to break in. It was trying to make him doubt what he saw. He stopped recording only long enough to text Detective Avery one thing, as safely as he could. I didn't answer. The hallway feed shows footprints at my door. U-39 still on paper. He hit send. The message didn't vanish. It delivered. That tiny green check felt like a miracle. He pocketed his phone and waited for the sound of a car in the lot, for any human noise that wasn't filtered through a wire. Meanwhile, out in the industrial strip where the road lights thinned and the fog collected like breath, Detective Avery rolled her car through the open gate of Blue Pine Storage and killed the engine without turning off her headlights. The beams threw long, pale bars across the chain-link fence and the rows of identical doors. A normal place, built to look forgettable. That was always the point. Avery stepped out into rain so cold, it felt like it was made of needles. She didn't rush. She didn't let adrenaline decide her angles. She moved like a person who has learned the difference between danger and drama. The gate had opened for her without a code. That alone told her enough. If the route was alive tonight, the facility was the mouth. She raised her flashlight and swept the corridor beyond the first row of units. Blank door plates, fresh screws, a smell of wet metal. And somewhere deeper in, a faint, cheerful sound that didn't belong in a place like this. A wind chime. Avery froze. The chime rang again, 2 notes, bright and wrong, like a smile painted over rot. Blue glass, she whispered to herself, and her stomach tightened with a tired, familiar dread. She walked toward the sound. Unit numbers should have been painted on the doors, but the plates were smooth, like they'd been sanded down. She counted units by distance, by the pattern of support beams, by the way the motion sensor lights flicked on in pools ahead of her. The chime came from the far end, where the corridor narrowed and the ceiling dipped. On the last door, there was no number, just a faint outline where a sticker had once been. Avery shone her flashlight at the lock. The padlock was new, but the hasp it hung from was old, its metal dulled by years. Above the door, a tiny camera sat like a black bead. Avery lifted her flashlight to it and felt something in her chest shift. She wasn't being watched by a person. She was being watched by a system that wanted to learn her habits. She took a step back, pulled a small analog voice recorder from her coat pocket and clicked it on. Old tech, no Wi-Fi, no cloud, no easy erasing. Then she pulled a second device, a disposable camera sealed in plastic. She took one photo of the door. Flash. The light stabbed the fog, and for half a second the corridor looked like a film set. The wind chime went dead still. Avery waited, listening. No footsteps, no breath. Just rain and the electrical hum of motion lights. "Okay," she murmured. And she did the thing she'd promised herself she wouldn't do alone. She cut the padlock with bolt cutters. The metal snapped with a clean, satisfying crack. She rolled the door up slowly, expecting resistance, expecting some kind of trap. It glided up like it had been oiled yesterday. Inside was darkness. Avery aimed her flashlight in. The beam landed on a hallway. Not a storage unit interior, not shelves or boxes. A hallway with peeling wallpaper and a wood floor. It was impossible, and yet there it was. Built inside a unit, like a lie made physical. Avery stepped in, her breath tight. The air was colder than outside. The smell of wet metal was stronger, mixed now with something faintly floral and wrong, like cheap air freshener trying to hide a cellar. On the right wall hung the wind chime, blue glass pieces that shimmered when her flashlight hit them. It sounded happy when it moved, and it made Avery's skin crawl. She turned slowly, tracking the set. At the end of the hallway was a bathroom door. Old knob, old lock. A thin line of light under the door, like someone inside had left a lamp on low. Avery felt her pulse in her throat. "Sophie," she said, not loud, not a shout, just a name offered like a rope. The recorder in her pocket caught every syllable. For a moment there was nothing. Then, from behind the bathroom door, a whisper drifted out, as if it had been waiting for the right voice. "Don't say the time." Avery's eyes closed for half a heartbeat. "I won't," she whispered back. "Sophie, it's Avery. I'm here. I'm real." Silence, and then a small sound. Plastic clicking softly, like a phone being tapped. Avery swallowed. "Okay," she breathed. "That's good. Sophie, listen. I'm going to open the door. If you can, step back. Quiet. No sudden moves." The lock on the bathroom door was turned from the inside. Avery saw the old latch tremble as if someone's hand was braced against it. She waited. "I'm stepping back," Sophie whispered, the words thin and exhausted. Avery reached for the knob and turned it slowly. The door opened a few inches, and Avery angled her flashlight away so it wouldn't blast the small space with light. She pushed the door wider and saw a woman crouched beside a bathtub. Hoodie pulled tight, face pale, eyes too wide for someone who has slept normally in years. Sophie Hart looked real in the way suffering looks real. Not theatrical, just quiet and worn. Avery stepped into the bathroom, kept her body between Sophie and the hallway, and spoke in the lowest tone she could. "You're safe," she said. "I'm getting you out." Sophie flinched, as if safety was a word that didn't belong to her anymore. "It's listening," she whispered. "If you say it, it knows." Avery nodded, not asking what it was, because she'd already learned that naming it gave it edges. "We're not giving it anything," Avery whispered. "We're leaving." She offered her hand. Sophie stared at it for a second, like she couldn't remember how to trust a hand. Then she took it, and Avery felt how cold her fingers were. Avery guided her out of the bathroom and into the hallway set. The wind chime didn't move until they passed beneath it. Then it rang once, bright and cheerful, and Sophie recoiled like it had screamed. Avery kept moving, steady, one step at a time, out of the unit and into the real corridor of storage doors. The second Sophie crossed the threshold, Avery's flashlight beam caught something on the floor of the unit near the wall. A tangle of cables leading to a steel cabinet the size of a mini fridge, its front panel covered in ports and old switches. The cabinet hummed like a living thing. Avery's jaw tightened. "Ethan was right," she murmured. "It's hardware." She pulled Sophie away from the doorway, toward the open air in the car, then turned back and aimed her flashlight at the cabinet. A small label on the metal, half peeled, read like an asset tag from another life. "Access Controller, Unit 39. Avery's stomach dropped with a grim satisfaction. U-39 wasn't a ghost. It was a physical controller, left behind, reactivated, wired into a fake hallway like someone had built a theater for calls that should never exist. Avery took 3 disposable camera photos of the label and the wiring. Flash, flash, flash. Then she pulled out a small canister of orange spray paint from her coat pocket, standard evidence marking tool, and painted a thick X on the cabinet and a circle around the label. If anyone tried to deny it, they'd have to deny orange paint too. Then the motion lights overhead flickered hard. The corridor beyond the gate went dim for a breath. Avery felt it instantly. The system noticed she'd found the body. Somewhere far away, back in the dispatch center, Ethan's monitor lit with that sterile prompt again. A plain window, a blinking cursor, and a question that made his hands go numb. "What time is it, Ethan?" The call cue glowed. The hallway feed flickered. For 1 second, Ethan saw a new line appear on his personnel screen. An internal memo draft template, clean and official, waiting to be filled. He didn't read it. He didn't give his eyes that trap. He felt his heart slam and forced himself to do only what he could trust. He grabbed his personal phone, opened the camera, and filmed the prompt. The cursor blinked at him like a heartbeat. Ethan didn't type a time. He typed the same non-time line, the same refusal to exist inside their rules. "I'm not here." The moment he hit enter, the overhead fluorescent light steadied. The prompt vanished. The memo template flickered and disappeared like it had been caught trying to sneak. Ethan's breath came out in a hard, silent rush. His phone buzzed immediately with a call, not through the dispatch console, but directly to his personal line. Unknown number. Ethan stared at it, remembering Sophie's last warning. "If the system calls you, don't answer." He didn't answer. He let it ring itself into nothing. Then his dispatch door chime rang, ding, ding, soft and satisfied. And Ethan felt his blood turn to ice. He didn't open the door. He didn't speak. He just lifted his phone again and filmed the locked deadbolt, the empty hallway camera feed, the wet footprints that still had no right to exist. And then, finally, he heard it. A car door slam outside. Real sound. Human sound. The supervisor's key card beeped at the entrance, and Detective Avery stepped into dispatch 2 minutes later with rain on her coat, bolt cutters in hand, and a woman behind her wrapped in a blanket. Ethan's eyes locked on Sophie's face like he needed to confirm she wasn't only a voice. Sophie looked at him and flinched, like she recognized him even though they'd never met in person. "You?" she whispered. And it wasn't fear this time. It was relief, shaped like disbelief. Ethan's throat tightened. "Sophie," he breathed, still careful, still refusing to give the building any more sound than necessary. Avery moved fast, not wasting time. She dropped a small stack of items on Ethan's desk. Disposable camera, analog recorder, the cut padlock, and a folded paper she'd pulled from her own pocket with the orange paint smeared on the edge. "Unit 39 is real," she said, low and sharp. "It's a controller wired into a fake hallway, set inside a storage unit. Blue glass chime and everything. I photographed the label and the wiring on a disposable camera. I recorded Sophie's voice on analog. I spray-marked the cabinet." Ethan stared at the pile like it was a miracle made of plastic and metal. "So it wasn't a house," he whispered. Avery's expression didn't soften. "It was a stage," she said. "A trap built to make calls that erase themselves. Calls that get written as your mistake. Calls that can keep a person hidden because the system refuses to admit they happened." Sophie sat on the edge of a chair like she didn't trust furniture either. Her hands shook around the blanket. "It tried to make me say it," she whispered. "It always tries." The time. Ethan swallowed. Avery nodded once. It uses time as a signature, she said. If you say it, it stamps you into the record. It makes your voice the author. It manufactures paperwork. Ethan stared at his monitor. For the first time since the night began, the call log showed something. A system notice buried in a low-priority maintenance channel. Avery pointed at it before he could look too long. Don't read it, she warned. Just screenshot it with your phone. We don't trust the screen. Ethan did it. He didn't let his eyes settle on the text. He just filmed. Avery turned to the hallway camera feed and pointed at the footprints. Those, she said. That's it trying to make you believe it's already inside. She reached into her coat, pulled out a small bag of chalk powder used for lifting prints, and tossed it to Ethan. We're going to prove whether they're real water or a video artifact. Ethan blinked. How? Avery crouched by the dispatch door without opening it. She sprinkled a pinch of chalk under the door gap where the footprint would be if it existed physically. The powder drifted and settled. Nothing disturbed it. No dampness, no smear. Avery looked up at Ethan. Camera illusion, she said. The system can draw on feeds, but it can't wet a floor through a locked door. Ethan's knees almost gave out with relief he didn't deserve. Sophie exhaled shakily. Avery stood and made her next decision with the calm brutality of a detective who has been denied closure too many times. We end it, she said. Tonight. Ethan frowned. How? Avery held up the bolt cutters and the analog recorder like answers. We take evidence out of its reach, she said. Then, we kill the root. She turned to the tech closet door in dispatch and keyed it open with the supervisor's code. Inside, the phone routing cabinet hummed with old fans and tangled patch cables. Avery pointed to a thick line labeled in faded marker, a line nobody touched unless everything was on fire. That's the legacy maintenance trunk, she said. That's where dead roots hide. Ethan stared. How do you know? Avery's eyes didn't leave the cabinet. Because I chased this for 3 years, she said. And every time I got close, the system erased the path. But it can't erase a physical cable if I'm holding it. She pulled on gloves, reached in, and clipped a small zip tie tag onto the cable so it couldn't be silently swapped later. Then she did something that made Ethan's heart jump. She unplugged the trunk. The cabinet lights flickered. The room's monitor glow dipped. For half a second, the dispatch floor felt like it fell through a trap door. The desk phone line lit again, furious now, flashing like a heartbeat. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't speak. He just filmed. The sterile prompt flashed on his monitor one last time, cursor blinking, desperate. What time is it, Ethan? Avery didn't even look at it. She took a heavy surge protector power strip under the cabinet, flipped the switch, and killed power to the routing box completely. The prompt vanished. The phone line went dead. The fluorescent lights steadied. In the sudden silence, the building felt like it had exhaled. Sophie's shoulders dropped like someone had cut strings holding her up. Ethan realized his hands were shaking so hard, the video on his phone looked like an earthquake. Avery stepped back out of the closet and shut the door firmly. It'll try again somewhere else, she said, because she wouldn't lie to them. But it won't be able to say you did it tonight. Not with what we have. Ethan stared at the pile of evidence. Disposable camera with real film, analog recorder with real tape, photos of the cabinet and the label, a rescued person sitting in his chair wrapped in a blanket. things the system couldn't delete with a blink. Sophie finally looked at Ethan like she could place him in the world. "You didn't hang up?" she whispered. Ethan swallowed, and his voice came out ragged, even though he kept it low. "I didn't," he said. Avery nodded once, satisfied. And then she did something that turned the whole night into a clean ending. She reached into her pocket and slid a small folded paper onto Ethan's desk. It was a printed memo template the system had tried to create, but it wasn't finished. The signature line was blank. The time field was blank. Avery tapped it with her finger. "It wanted you to fill those," she said. "You didn't, so it couldn't close the story the way it wanted." Ethan stared at the blank lines and felt something inside him unclench. Outside, the rain kept falling like nothing had happened, like the world never knew it had almost been rewritten. Avery took Sophie's hand gently and helped her stand. "We're going to the hospital," she said. "Then we're going to put a real case number on you that no system can delete." Sophie nodded, trembling. And for the first time, her eyes looked less like a trapped animal and more like a person trying to return. Ethan walked them to the secure exit. He didn't look at the clock. He didn't say goodbye the way he usually would. He simply watched them step into the night and felt the building become normal again in small pieces. When Avery's car pulled away, Ethan returned to his desk and sat down, exhausted. The call queue was quiet. The incident list was ordinary. The hallway camera showed a clean corridor. No footprints, no glitch, no chime. Ethan let his head fall forward for a moment, hands clasped, eyes closed. Then, from his desk phone, powered, connected, but dead silent, came a soft mechanical click, like a line opening. Ethan's eyes snapped open. He didn't answer. He didn't touch anything. He just stared at the phone. The click came again, followed by a tiny sound that made his blood run cold. 2 cheerful notes, impossibly faint, like a wind chime ringing somewhere far down a hallway that didn't exist anymore. Ding, ding. Ethan reached into his pocket, felt the folded paper proof still there, and understood the last truth of the night. He hadn't ended the route forever. He'd just proved it was real. And proving something exists is the first step to making sure it comes back. Subscribe to the channel. There will be new stories every day.